Full masterclass with bonus modules is free on WAP. First link in the description below. So you have now entered Act 2, the awakening of the official Matrix masterclass. Now, why is this piece so important? I would say this is even the pivotal piece of where your life, if you don't already know these things, your life is about to change immensely, for better or for the worse. Now, I would say hopefully for the better. Hopefully you can contain the information inside here. It's a lot to take in. I've learned all of these things over the past few, it's 2025 now. I've been learning these things since 22. So I would say about 3 years plus, maybe little things along the way here and there. And you might also continue to wake up more and more, as your life goes on. It just happens, things just happen where you start realizing, you start noticing, you become a noticer, right? So we're going to get into it. Just before we start again, I want to give a quick disclaimer. If you have a weak stomach, there's going to be bits and pieces of this that are graphic, things that I'm going to talk about, things that I'm going to show, because in this, I want to give you proof. Everything that I tell you, I want to give you proof of. I'm not just going to sit here and just, fucking pulling your dick and just lying out of my ass. I'm going to give you things with proof, with the documents, with anything that I can pull, anything I'm able to find, right? So I want to give you everything that I possibly can for you to understand that what I'm saying is true and that I'm not lying to you, because these things are very important for you to understand that it's the truth. It's the dark truth. It's extremely dark. Some of these things are sad, disgusting, immoral. I mean, it's the corruption, you should know, right? So just know, again, as a disclaimer, if you have a weak stomach, you can try to bear through it, but we're going to see you might not be able to handle it. But I guess we'll have to find out if you want to trudge through this journey. But I think it's going to be worth it because, quick side note, I never thought I'd be able to handle knowing these kinds of things. And sometimes I'm not able to sleep at night knowing some of the things I know, but it's worth it. It's worth it. You learn how to become a better person over time. And that's what I'm also going to tell you in Act 3. After Act 2 there's multiple parts to each act. And so Act 3 is dedicated to just learning about how to turn around from all this and the negative things, because you're going to garner a lot of negative energy after learning these things, and it's what happened to me. So I'm just warning you right now, you're going to get angry, you might get sad, you're going to get emotional in some way, shape, or form. You're going to get hurt, whatever it is, because these things are horrible. You're going to start questioning why these things are even able to happen, but it's the real world. And that's just how it is. So we're learning about it, and then I'm going to teach you how to turn it around and turn your negative energy into positive energy and use that to become a better version of yourself. So again, here we go with Act 2. And we start with Part 1. What is the Matrix? We're going to define it here. Similarly to the 1999 film, The Matrix, it's everything around us. Although we may not live in a literal simulation, the world is still controlled and manipulated by the global elites and ultra-rich. Everything that you've been taught in school, from 9/11 to the coronavirus, was all mass manipulation. Everything you've seen in the media about George Floyd, Ukraine, and Israel are all part of an agenda. Not to mention the amount of chemicals in your water and food, and the heavy push of homosexuality, transgenderism, feminism, obesity, censorship, and more. There's an endless amount of proof for these things, so we'll be discussing a few today. So, the global elites and ultra-rich. Who are they? To understand the monsters behind the Matrix more thoroughly, we must first look into them and research the following. Because, quick side note, you're never going to be able to understand any of this if you don't understand who's pulling the strings, who are the puppet masters, so to speak, right? So, who are they? In other words, who runs the world? What do they do? In other words, how do they run the world? Why do they do it? In other words, why do they run the world? What is their end goal? In other words, what is their mission for the world? Now, not to say that they're doing the things that they do for the world. They're doing it for themselves. But you understand, what is their mission for themselves that they're doing to the world. Who are the global elites? Who exactly are these so called global elites and ultra rich? In other words, who runs the world? To begin, let's expose some names: the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, the British royal family, Vladimir Putin, Saudi Royale, which is like Saudi money, the Gates, the Clintons, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all the rich people, Mark Zuckerberg, and then you have companies like BlackRock and Vanguard and many more. And now I need you to understand that this group of people are not just higher powers with a lot of money. They are evil creatures that work alongside the devil in order to achieve their own selfish desires, while simultaneously destroying the rest of the population. Everyone, no matter who you are, either has been, are being, or will be affected. Despite this, we can still achieve great things. And again, that is exactly why you are inside of the official Matrix Masterclass. So, how do they run the world? What do the global elites and ultra rich do? In other words, how do they run the world? To put it simply, from the moment you're born, you're fed garbage food and water with poisonous chemicals inhabiting them. An example of this, atrazine. Next, they curate everything in the media to make sure it follows their agenda. Examples of this include news broadcasts like CNN and BBC, TV series, and video games, social media, music, and everything. All of these things are made to keep you confused, complacent, distracted, fat, lazy, and dumb. Then, once placed into school, you are created into a working slave that only knows how to take orders and never think outside the box. You are lied to about college. Once the second you get into high school, it's always, even in like late middle school, all you hear is you have to get a degree or you'll fail in life. Your education's important, and you need a college degree. You need to go to college. That's all you ever hear about. What are you gonna do for college? What's your career? It's great that they're trying to push people to do things, to do great things, right? But the way college is set up now, it's just a scam, because if you want to actually go into, like, if you want to actually have a long-term career, let's say as like a doctor, sometimes you'll need 4 to 8 to even 12 years sometimes for like really advanced things, but they pay good. So if you're actually aiming for that kind of thing, I mean, sure, your ROI over time could be good, but it's going to take a long time to pay back the hundreds of thousands of dollars you're going to have to be in debt for that. Honestly, it's just not worth it. There's quicker ways to make even more money. So, yeah, it's just, I mean, like I say here, your education is important, but at least not in school. I'm just not a fan of school. I didn't do too well in it. That's not the reason. I'm not sitting here hating on school just because, I dropped out and I did bad. I did drop out, yes, but that's not the reason I dislike school. I dropped out and dislike school because of the way that they teach, and they basically, and just, I don't know. I have a specific way of learning. Maybe it's just me because I'm weird and my brain operates differently from most people, but it just didn't work for me. I just didn't like it. It's sitting down at a desk and staring at a computer for hours and hours and hours at a time for basically your entire day, working on some pointless bullshit like the Pythagorean theorem, or learning about like mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell, or like like some of the stuff, yes, is useful, like basic math and obviously English and some language arts and some science, some history. Yeah, that stuff is important. But well, actually, not sometimes. At some point, they go beyond it and they just teach you things that are just completely useless, because I barely remember many of the things I learned in school. The only thing I really still use today is the scientific method. I use that in every single thing that I do. I test things. I test things out to see what works and what doesn't, and then I continue to do what works until it doesn't again, and then I reiterate it. It's very, very easy. It's very simple. It's like a machine, living like a machine, I guess, but I try not to see it that way. So, yeah. So now, why do they run the world? What is the motivation behind the actions of the global elites and ultra rich? In other words, why do they run the world? These groups of people are greedy scum that only give a shit about something that will slip another penny in their pocket, regardless of whether it affects others around them or not. They have no morals or boundaries and will do anything for more money and power. Anyone and or anything that opposes them will disappear. They are murdered in a fake death scenario set up, such as a fatal accident, suicide, whatever. These murders are commonly done in an execution-style manner as a sacrifice to the devil to obtain more wealth and totalitarian power over the weak. Examples of this include Stanley Meyer and Tafari Campbell, and there's a bunch of others, like people that were really close to the Clintons. Like Hillary Clinton has 56 of her friends that allegedly just all committed suicide when they got too close. Very sus. Same thing with the Obamas. But if we take a look here, we can take a look here at Stanley Meyer. So when we take a look here at Stanley Meyer, I hope I'm saying his last name correct. Rest in peace to him. Well, he created a vehicle, a car that ran on water essentially, and he had this. I'm not gonna give you the whole story, but a basic recap is, of course, the Fed tried to find out. They offered to take his blueprints for money. He said no, they didn't like that, and at some point, he turns up dead. Not a coincidence. Never is. So what is their end game? What is their end goal? In other words, what is their mission for the world? Unfortunately, the grim reality is that the elites view us all as cattle and pawns. Check the Talmud. They do with us as they please with no morals behind their actions whatsoever. All they want is for the entire population to be mass controlled by their propaganda, fattened by their poisonous food and water, and dead by their vaccinations and medications. As I've stated in the previous slide, the only thing the elite care about is money and total control. They are satanic and extremely narcissistic creatures that prey on the downfall of humanity to control it alongside Satan. Fortunately for us, though, they don't know the consequences of their actions, or actually they do. They're just playing people because it's what they like to do. And luckily, God has a special place in hell for these monsters. So, going over specifics, now that we understand how the Matrix operates on a surface level, this is what I just showed you is extremely bare bones. What we're about to get to is so much worse. But we can now dive into specific and detailed examples to use to our advantage and stay safe. So, what to avoid and reject, what to pursue and allow. So, like I've said earlier, Act 2, the entirety of Act 2 and all the parts and sections of it is what to avoid and reject in your life. So you learn about these things so you know how to basically stay safe. And then Act 3, all the parts and sections in Act 3 is what to pursue and allow into your life so you can become a better version of yourself. If you want the full Matrix Masterclass with locked modules, bonus sections, downloads, and the path to break out of the system, you can access it for completely free on WAP. First link is in the description below.